Hello, everybody. We're just letting folks in. We'll get started in just a moment. Okay, well, while folks continue to join us, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to Ready for Kindergarten Live. I'm Ann Vanderfleet, the Agency Director for South Carolina First Steps, and we are here today to talk about how we prepare young children for success in school and life. It's so exciting to see so many people registered for today's event. I think we have well over 300 participants expected. And whether you are a parent or a grandparent, an early educator, a home visitor, we are here to support you today or anytime that you need. So we hope that you'll continue to reach out as we move along. So for today, just a few guidance notes. We will be using a Q&A feature, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat box at any time. And after our speakers present, we will address those questions. In just a moment, you'll see a poll that will help us to get to know you a little bit better. And if you're here today seeking professional development credit through South Carolina Endeavors, this is your chance to enter your Endeavors ID. And we'll give folks a few minutes to do that. Take the poll and enter your South Carolina Endeavors ID, if that's appropriate. Okay, so when the poll appears on the screen, and you should, well, let's see, this may be the poll for South Carolina Endeavor. So let's just give this a moment. And if you don't have a South Carolina Endeavors number, that's okay. So you should see the poll now. If you are registered through Endeavors, go ahead, like I said, and enter that number. If you don't, you can leave that question blank. Just giving folks some time to do that. We're up to 40% participation on the poll. Thanks everybody for sharing your information. Okay, we're up to 50%. So when we get a little bit closer to the end, we will go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Cara. Okay. All right. So while folks continue to take the poll, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. Cara is a mother of two, an early child educator, a parenting coach, and founder of Core for Parenting. She began her career teaching preschool and kindergarten, where she noticed many children were arriving to school without those foundational skills that they needed to be successful in school. That experience inspired her to become a parent educator, a continuing education trainer, and a keynote speaker. Today, she's going to share with us practical advice for supporting children and the grown-ups who love them through that all-important transition to kindergarten. So, Cara, would you like to get started?
Absolutely. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Anne. And hello to all the parents, all the educators, and all the caregivers on this call. You really make the magic happen for these kids in those early years. So we're going to talk today about the 5 executive functioning skills for success in school and life. And I'll preface this by saying there are way more than 5. And as adults, you know that. But I've really curated this so that we can hone in on what kids need in those early years. And I'm also a huge advocate for the COVID generation, who are now 5 years old, and they are needing us to show up in very different ways with these executive functioning skills. Oh, there we go. So let's start with the science. The science tells us that 85% of foundational brain growth, the literal size of a child's brain, is fully developed by 5 years old. All those neural pathways that are developing, the 1 million neural connections per minute, the brain is built by kindergarten. But here's the data. And this is pre-COVID data. I'm very curious to see what we get when we talk to people in this post-COVID era. But pre-COVID data tells us that 40% of incoming kindergartners, so 4 out of 10, actually show us readiness skills in all the learning areas. That means we have a fully functioning and developed brain capacity for the 5-year-old age mark. And 60% of kids are coming in not ready to learn in a classroom setting. So this is some of the research I did when I decided to leave the classroom and become a parent educator, become a champion for these kids, to step into the teacher training space and say, how do we make this number invert? How do we reflect what we really want to see for these kids in the first 5 years of life? Because who is their first teacher? Parents. You are. You are their first teacher from the day you bring them home, however that is for you with your family unit and however you built your family. That birth to 5 experience is where you shine as their model in so many ways. So what does kindergarten readiness mean to you? I'm so curious if you're interested to put into the chat, what it means to you. If you're a parent, from your perspective, what are the things that you feel like you should be doing in order to get your child ready for kindergarten? And if you're an educator, I bet you have a different lens that you're looking through. Well, for me, when I was thinking about kindergarten readiness, and when I was a preschool and kindergarten teacher, I had preschoolers and kindergartners. So I was doing this all day, every day, 24/7. What I really wanted is for them to be world ready. I think we could all agree on that. And the world continuously changes. So really, to be world ready, they need 2 things: the ability to navigate relationships and the belief that they can learn new skills, even when it's hard. What do you notice is missing from here? We talk all the time about how cognition matters. And parents, I'm talking directly to you right now. You have been sold, I believe, a rotten bill of goods that says if you have your child by 5 years old, knowing their ABCs, 1, 2, 3's, colors, and numbers, you did your job. And you're out there doing the job that you believe that you should be doing. And yay for you, because you care. You're here in the middle of the day on a Friday. You care and you want to do the work. But here's the thing: cognition is not on our 2 bullet points here. Developing those skill sets comes organically when we nurture relationships first. This is my collaborative parenting methodology. Look where the cognition lies. It's that one teeny fourth of that pie out of this whole 8-piece puzzle. When we nurture the human connection and build relationships with caregivers, parents, and early childhood educators that is based in mutual trust, respect, honesty, they know that you're speaking the truth to them, and that ability to talk about things, we become a team with these kids. And in those spaces, we can create opportunities for learning the skills they really need to be successful in school. Those social, emotional, interpersonal, and physical body awareness and control skills. And then all of a sudden, you've got a child who's learning to read because inside this bubble, they can. The truth is, the relationship that you develop with kids at a very young age grows over time, but it's that foundation that allows it to be successful in moments that get trickier, like the teenage years and the 20s. This is my daughter, Caroline, and I just love seeing this scope of her toddler years all the way through. She now lives in Japan. She's fully independent. And one of the things I love most about her is she is out there living her best life in the world independently. And we still have this relationship. So relationship first really matters. So we've talked about what isn't kindergarten readiness. Yes, all of these things. Do they play a role? Sure, but they're not the entire puzzle. What is kindergarten readiness? It's taking turns being able to speak and listen, sharing toys and attention, waiting for a turn. I'm guessing if I could see you right now, I have a lot of the educators are nodding along, going, yes, please. Being able to ask and advocate for themselves, ask for help when they need it, not always having to be first. That's a huge one. And then some of these physical body independent and autonomy skills, the toileting and the dressing and undressing, it's really important stuff. And at home, you have the ability to honor them by creating space for them to learn these skills. So first of all, can we just call out that way back in the 90s in my first kindergarten class, I had a killer perm. There it is. But my most successful students in every class that I taught could do these things. These were the skill sets that they had and that they were practicing and that they were growing into and getting better at. And if every student could come to school with a measure of all of these, then we truly would have small and large group settings where kids could continue to do the cognitive learning because they felt safe in their space. They knew how to talk to other people. They knew who the important people in their world were, and they had empathy and compassion for themselves and each other. So let's boil it down. What are the executive functioning skills that help us regulate when we're triggered? Because that is the small human's life, right? Trigger, trigger, trigger. What executive functioning skills do they need to be successful learners? Number one, impulse control. Put simply, the ability to wait. We do not live in a society that waits anymore. There is no more delayed gratification. It's instantaneous. Order it now, get it today. Want the thing, it's here for you immediately. And when we set kids up from an early age with the ability to know that something is going to happen, but we have to wait a certain period of time to experience it or have it, it's a gift. They learn self-awareness, they learn self-control, they have some self-talk going on in their brain while they're waiting because it's hard. They can learn to think before they speak, think before they act. So here's a few intentional language scripts that you can use when you have a child who's in a waiting scenario. Call it out for what it is. Waiting is hard. You wish you could have it right now. You wish you could do it right now. That's a nice way to hold space for their feelings. And then forward them, future forward. Imagine what it will feel like when you finally get to. And then when they do, celebrate the heck out of it. Skill number 2 is emotional regulation. There is a lot of talk about emotional intelligence being so much more important than cognition right now. And thankfully, that wave is returning for us. What do I mean by the ability to emotionally regulate? A child that can do this or is practicing these skills has the ability to self-soothe. And I want you to separate that from the can fall asleep by themselves. I'm talking about a child who knows when they're triggered and understands what actions they can take to help themselves feel better. Somebody who has a very deep emotional vocabulary. I have a podcast episode early on in the show all about the fact that we set kids up unintentionally to have 3 feelings. They're happy, sad, or mad. Well, they have way more feelings than that. And so we want to be modeling this deep emotional vocabulary so they can learn to identify and match a feeling with the name. Emotional regulation means having an awareness of your environment, knowing how you fit in, being able to read the room, and then having that empathy and compassion for yourself and others. So you could say things like, you are someone who really likes to watch all your friends do it first, and then you decide if you're ready to try. That teaches them how to practice the emotions they're feeling. It looks like you are very upset in this moment, and you might need a few minutes to make a different decision. And then teach them about feelings, teach them about emotions. Feelings are temporary. Let this one move through you. Skill number 3 is flexible thinking. And, I think we all need more practice. I know I need more practice in this one. But if we can set kids up to understand that the way they perceive a picture in their head, an outcome in their head is not always the way it's going to be, and handle it well, that is an essential skill for success as a human being. And under that, we learn planning and decision making, can adapt when plans and routines change unexpectedly. This is a big one in classrooms. When they know the routine and they're confident in the routine, then all of a sudden, one day, for some reason, that block's not happening because it's a special event. That can be hard for so many kids. And they can really connect their emotions to the outcomes and apply perspective. I have another fantastic episode on the show early on about a little girl and I who had a standing date at a breakfast joint, and we would go every weekend, and it was amazing. And the first weekend that we showed up and they were closed unexpectedly, we didn't know what to do. And we had an amazing conversation, practiced flexible thinking, and coming up with a new decision. So something I always say is, wow, that was unexpected, right? We just call it what it is. There's no emotion there other than surprise. I wonder what we could do instead. Now, these are smaller kids that we're talking about here. So don't accept them to have a solution. Help them. I have an idea. Would you like to hear it? And now we're in that collaboration space. Skill number 4 is a growing sense of self. And people often ask me, wait, is that a skill? Like, how do you quantify that? I believe it's maybe the most important skill because we are growing humans who need to know who they are, and they need to have skill sets that are all self-driven. That identity building, that self-esteem, that confidence, again, the ability to calm themselves down in a hot moment, and the ability to advocate for themselves and believe that they are an independent thinker that has ideas that are worth pursuing. And so you can grow their sense of self, not only by pointing out how they interact in actions or in situations, but by saying, wow, you did that all by yourself. You must feel so proud of yourself, not I, you. You are someone who tries even when it's hard, right? You want to keep that personal development journey going for this tiny human. And then our last skill that really needs attention is time management. And if we all raised our hands on flexible thinking, I'm pretty sure we're raising them higher on time management. Planning and organizing, prioritizing what step to do first, following directions, all things that make somebody ready to learn in a group setting like kindergarten. So, ways that you can support this, parents, I'm talking to you here, is to help include them. We have 3 things to do this morning. What should we do first? Let them make the decision. If they're a little bit younger and they're not ready for that level of collaboration, just tell them, here's the plan. First, we're going to go to the post office, then we're going to the bank, and then we're going to go to the grocery store. Show them how it breaks down. By the way, this also keys into pre-reading, and that is a skill that they're going to be working towards as well. And then, ruminate on it when it doesn't go to plan, because often it doesn't. Flexible thinking, right? That took us longer than we thought, but we did it. Hooray, us. So here are the 5 executive functioning skills in line for you, along with this image of what it looks like and feels like to raise healthy families who have school-ready kids. And I have free resources for all of you. Please don't feel like you have to screenshot anything. The whole PDF of this is available to you. I submitted that. And so if you need a little support in any of these areas, I would love for you to tap in and get what you need. And please stay in touch because as somebody who travels the country and the world doing teacher trainings and parent education seminars, I would really love to hear from you and see what your current need levels are and where your kids are excelling and where they need a little bit more support. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Cara. So we've got a couple of questions. Sorry, I'm trying to get myself. Okay. Thank you so much. Lots of great tips and insights. Here's a question for you. My child has trouble controlling his temper. I've tried to help, but I don't know how he'll do in kindergarten. What should I be doing now?
As so happens with questions, I often have so many questions about them. Um, so I'd love to, if you're willing to put in the chat how old this kiddo is. Are we talking about someone who's 4 and headed to kindergarten next year?
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
And
we
I think
are.
it's a question about like managing emotions,
Okay.
that year heading into kindergarten.
Yeah. Well, What I'll tell you is that what you see at home in the emotional outbursts and the flexibility and safe space that your kiddo has, and what they'll do when they enter kindergarten could look and sound very different. Because you've got kind of that positive peer pressure thing going on once you get there. And you've got some guidance and leadership from the staff in the classroom. However, right now, I would absolutely focus on in the moments where he's melting down. Make it is a he. Yes, did I get that right? Okay, thank you. In the moment that he's melting down, first of all, as long as he's safe, give him permission to feel. And do that by using your words. I can see that you are very angry right now. I can tell because your feet are kicking. I can hear in your voice that you are so upset that you are yelling. But give him permission to feel the feelings by narrating back what you actually see. A lot of times, kids, when they feel the permission, they actually start to come back down on their own because now they feel seen and heard and a little bit understood in the moment. Inside that emotional outburst is not the time to try to do any corrective conversations. It's once you've returned to calm that you can do a reflection and say, wow, you had a lot of big feelings during that. Everything was coming out of you. I'm so glad it's out now. When you feel that big a feeling, I wonder what else we could do to move it through your body. And if you know your kid best. So if he is a very tactile, very kinesthetic, very physical kiddo, then you're going to want to have some of those tools around, some of those grippies that he can squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then the next time you see about to have a major emotional outburst, give him a tool. It looks like you might need to squeeze these a bit while you move this big feeling through your body. So without knowing your kid extremely well, that's what I would say.
Sure, that's great advice. And I think a lot of, we hear that often in the field from early educators, challenging behaviors. And certainly I think most parents at one time or another have struggled with, big feelings. And I think your advice to sit with it and not necessarily try to fix it in real time, but let the child have the big feelings. Lean into things that sort of distract, like the types of toys that you're talking about. I also think getting outside once things are calm, getting some fresh air, getting some movement, to your point, again, depending on the personality of the child. So that's great advice. So another question is from a parent who says, I'm as nervous, if not more nervous than my child about that first day of kindergarten. What advice do you have for parents who just are worried about that transition?
Yeah, that's such a challenge. I will tell you that I put my 18-year-old on an airplane to Japan and she's never come back. Right. So that level of I've done what I can. And now it's time for them to see how they can do independently on their own in a setting away from me for in your sake, a short period of time. That is really powerful stuff. But I will say to you, that it is totally fine for you to also own your feelings. I feel like when I talk to a lot of parents, they feel like they have to gatekeep that from their kids because if they share their feelings, they think their kids are going to be more nervous than they actually are. Promise you, your kiddo is going to make that transition. Yes, it might take a week or two to settle into the new routines and people, but you just tell your kid, say, listen, I have loved being your parent, loved being your mom, your dad since you were tiny. And now it's time for you to go be a kindergartner and make new friends and learn at school. And I'm feeling a little nervous about that. I'm feeling a little sad about it. I'm feeling like I won't get as much time with you. And I just wanted you to know how I feel. And listen, When you come back from kindergarten, if you're having some feelings about the fact that things are different in your life, please be sure to tell me about those because I want to hear how you're feeling too.
Sure. Thank you so much, Karen. I think, one of the things I hear in that message is, it's also okay to need some support for all the moms and dads and caretakers out there. Transitions are big for adults too. And to be mindful of they're going to pick up your cues. And so maybe leaning into friendships and other supports to help you sit with and process your own nervousness and just talking about school in a positive way. Some other strategies I've heard is it can be very helpful to take a tour, to meet the teacher, to sort of practice school routines before school actually starts. So that's all good stuff. And we sure appreciate you this morning. We're going to move now to some about kindergarten readiness slides. And before we move on, I also just want to add that if you missed the initial poll, if you will put in the chat your name and your Endeavor number, if you're here for the training hour today, it's also okay if you do not have a South Carolina Endeavors number. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Okay, so this event is part of South Carolina's statewide effort to support families through the transition to kindergarten. You can see we have lots and lots of partners. South Carolina First Steps, Richland County Public Education Partners, our friends at the Department of Education, Family Connection, School Improvement Council, Partnerships for Inclusion, Head Start, SERVE, and DSS. So we are very grateful for that partnership and share that with you so that there's a lot of organizations and people working to strengthen South Carolina's system of early care and education. As you well know, readiness is not just about the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's about helping children feel confident, capable, and nurtured. If nothing else, there's just, there's not enough hugs and sort of gentle response. So you keep up the good work. We know that parenting and early care and education can be very challenging, but certainly worth all the efforts. And we're here to support you. And that support, the need for that really starts prenatally. It does take a village. It's your family, your community, and all of these partners are here to support you. Schools also play a big role in readiness. It's not just about whether children are ready for school, but whether the schools are ready to meet the needs of all children, which takes us to our next speaker that's going to talk about the degree to which that elementary school, that kindergarten teacher is ready to embrace children, meet them where they are, recognize differences lovingly. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tomeka Love. Tomeka is currently the assistant principal at Red Bank Elementary School. She was the elementary assistant principal of the year. She's got 21 years of experience and has worked in lots of roles, including school counselor, mental health as an interventionist, and with some federal programs. Tomeka is currently pursuing a doctorate in systems improvement science, and she's deeply committed to strengthening young children and families. And we're glad to have her with us today. We know that she's really committed to supporting the whole child. She and her husband live in Lexington, where they're raising their daughter, who's now a high school junior. So with that, Tomeka, welcome.
Thank you, Anne, for that introduction. And I am going to share my screen. Good afternoon, parents and fellow educators. I'm extremely excited to be here today to share my passion for all things education. I thank you to Cara as well for providing that introduction to the 5 executive functioning skills, which are essential to the work that we do in education. And so that is a great segue into our learning today around kindergarten readiness, a typical day in kindergarten, and the importance of parental engagement in student success. So kindergarten, the term kindergarten Our kinder is German, and it means children's garden, reflecting the emphasis on nurturing and growth. So as educators, our role is to ensure that we are meeting students where they enter our schools. And so it's important that we are growing students and making sure that we're providing all the resources and tools that they need, as well as the supports for parents. So the period from birth to age 5 marks a time of accelerated brain growth. And what that means is that preschool is a critical opportunity to cultivate the foundational skills essential for kindergarten readiness. And a child's early learning experiences are foundational for their later success in school. So during infancy, toddlerhood, and the preschool years, learning is constant and often happens more quickly than in later childhood. So what is kindergarten readiness? Kindergarten readiness can encompass a wide range of things, but it's ultimately the child's ability to engage in meaningful learning, build positive relationships with their teachers, their classmates, and every adult that they interact with in their building, and ultimately navigate the school day with confidence. So during the first 45 days of kindergarten, and I know we had several parents that were asking questions about, the things that they need to prepare their students for kindergarten, or are not sure what to expect when they enter the schools. Well, what we do as educators is we provide what we call a kindergarten readiness assessment. And it gives us a blueprint of where students are. And as we all know, students enter school at different phases in their journey. And so our goal is to take the information from the kindergarten readiness assessment and identify areas where students may need additional support. And so today I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about those 5 or 6 areas, starting with social and emotional development, language, literacy, math, and physical development. And they're all different domains that we use to really think through how we can best support students and how we can reach out to parents and include them as partners in their child's learning. So social emotional readiness, it really encompasses a broad range of things, but the most important things that we look for with our students is their ability to follow directions, how well they can share and take turns with their classmates, managing emotions, which is one of the things that we consistently work with students, not only in kindergarten, but through life, because even as adults, we often have issues managing our own emotions. So that's often a lifelong journey, but we try to make sure that we're giving students those foundational skills to help build their capacity as they matriculate through school. Also, working independently and collaboratively, that is really essential, because in the classroom, students will have moments where they'll work independently with them, on a task by themselves, and then they'll have to work with a group or 1 or 2 students. So it's important that they have those foundational skills, or we work to help build those skills when they enter school, and showing empathy for others. So when we think about language and literacy, we often think about learning how to write your name, recognizing names and letters, understanding basic phonemic awareness, but most importantly, being able to listen and understand what we're hearing and expressing their ideas verbally. It's important that we are working with our students to give them an opportunity to express themselves. And oftentimes expression could be having a meltdown, not understanding why you're telling them that they can't have a certain item, but it's okay to allow our children to express themselves verbally, because that helps build the language and literacy skills. Also practice writing, and then have an interest in books. And when we're thinking about introducing our students to books in the early ages, something as simple as introducing them to the cover of the book, or the back of the book, or the concepts of print, or things that you're going to see in a story, and really using pictures to tell a story. Because when they start in kindergarten and we start to work with them on the basic writing concepts, they're going to start with pictures. So it's okay if, you're asking your child to tell you about a story that they may have read, and you're just going to see them draw pictures, because that's the basic concepts to building their writing abilities. And math, we often think of learning their numbers and learning how to count to 10. Those are the basic things that often come to mind when we think about math. But the language of math is equally important as learning to count. So just basic concepts of understanding the difference between big, little, adding and subtracting, or what comes first, what comes next, and what comes last. Those are really important language of math skills that are essential to the kindergarten foundation. Also investing in puzzles and storybooks. Parents, if you're trying to identify things that will help your child with this basic math concepts, puzzles, storybooks that emphasize shapes, colors, and numbers are essential to building those foundational skills. And oftentimes, reading and math will overlap. So you can find books that have math concepts in there. So you're teaching or exposing them to multiple concepts, not just reading in general. And then most importantly, use the things that are in your community to help build the basic reading and math skills. And I'll give you an example. As I was riding home from work, I thought about it. I was like, a stop sign will actually teach your child the color of red, the shape, and then it also gives them a basic introduction to a vocabulary word, the word stop, S-T-O-P. You're also teaching them individual letters, and then you're teaching them how to actually sound out different words, whether they're stretching their words or they're learning beginning and ending syllables. So a lot of learning that takes place in the earlier years, and even as we navigate through life, is in our community. So you can use a lot of things in your community to help build capacity and teach your students or your children the early learning. And going on a scavenger hunt in your neighborhood, they can find items to count. They can find different things within the community to help build the capacity in reading and math. Cognitive readiness lends itself to being able to problem solve. And we also know that it's very important to allow students to be curious and to explore things. And then having a basic understanding of concepts such as colors, shapes, numbers, and understanding how to sort them as well. Now, as a parent, I have a 17-year-old, but I can remember my daughter Cheyenne in the early years from age 2 all the way up to 7 or 8, she constantly asked me why questions. Now, there were moments where I was like, oh my goodness, she's asking me another question. But I realized from the educator lens that it was actually helping build her cognitive readiness skills. And so I say all that to say that now as a 17-year-old, she's really great at advocating for herself, asking questions, problem solving, all of the things that we wanted her to have as she matriculated through school. It started with her asking those simple why questions. So no matter how exhausting it is as parents, allow your children to ask questions and try to give them answers, and even ask them questions to really build their cognitive capacity. And then the last thing under cognitive readiness is to help increase their attention span. I know we're living in a technology world, but my advice to you as a parent and an educator, for parents and all of us who serve children, is to limit screen time. Have students or children to sit down and have conversations with you, or allow them to sit for certain periods of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and work on a task. Working with puzzles are a great way to build the attention span because they're focusing on one thing for a long period of time. And this will actually help support them when they enter into kindergarten. And later in the presentation, I will share what a typical day looks like so that you will have a better understanding of how important it is to help with increasing their attention span. And physical development readiness, these lend itself to your fine motor skills, making sure that students understand or know how to hold a pencil, using scissors to cut. Again, I'll go back to that screen time because we have cell phones, we have iPads, we have computers, we have all types of devices where we're only using our thumbs and maybe our pointer finger to navigate and, go through our technology. So make sure we're putting pencils and balls and scissors in their hands to help develop those fine motor skills. Gross motor skills, of course, lend itself to running, jumping, and climbing. I encourage outside play. Children need to get outside, away from technology, and play. So that helps build those gross motor skills. And then self-help skills, just helping, children to be able to dress themselves, button their shirts, unbutton their pants, even start teaching them how to tie their shoes, and then proper toiletry as well. And then the last thing that's equally important is healthy eating and good sleeping habits. In kindergarten and in school in general, students they spend most of their time with the school, and they spend in about 7 hours a day. And a lot of that time is devoted to academics. And it really is important that they have healthy eating habits as well as good sleeping habits. So what does a typical day in kindergarten look like? I thought it was important to share this with you as parents, and then for my educator colleagues, those of you that are working in 4K programs and even kindergarten, know that the day is a little different than it used to be somewhat 15, 20 plus years ago. And I can remember in kindergarten, we had nap time, but we no longer have that. So it's important that we work to build the stamina and make sure that students have adequate time to sleep at night. And then they're coming with healthy breakfast as well. So in our setting, we start school at 7. So our doors open at 7. And we have around from 7:15 to 7:30, we start with a soft breakfast in the classroom. We have breakfast in the classroom for our students. We have a news show and announcements, and then we start with the morning meeting and calendar time. Our morning meeting time is very important because it gives students an opportunity to talk about things that happen outside of school, like if they're involved in sporting events or they had something fun that they did with their parents. This is a time for them to share something outside of school, and it helps build community in the classroom. So I really appreciate having that time for students to talk about non-academic things within the classrooms in the morning. And then we go into our reading block. And our reading block it's long, but we have it broken up into about 30-minute increments. Now, our students are not working for 30 complete minutes. We have it broken up in about 15-minute increments. And there's a lot of music and movement and song and dance, different things to really make sure that we're keeping students engaged in learning. But here, if you'll notice, from 7:15 until 9:50 is where most of the learning is taking place as far as reading, writing, and writing. And then we break for lunch and come back. And the second part of our day is more lending itself towards recess, purposeful play. We have a related arts time where students rotate from music, art, PE. We also have STEM class as well as Spanish. So this gives them an opportunity to move around, to be more engaged in somewhat non-academic things. And then we go back to a math workshop. But within our math workshop, they're working with a lot of manipulatives and a lot of hands-on activities. So that's continuing to keep them engaged after having such a heavy load in the morning. And then we end our day with a snack, and then they have reflection time to really reflect on their day and talk about what went well and just some areas of growth that they want to move into as they enter for the next day. And then we transition. So I know I've shared a lot, but I think it's important for everyone to understand what a typical day in kindergarten looks like. The students are busy from start to finish. But parents, I can really share with you, after that first week of school, they begin to get into a routine, and they have procedures that really help shape what their day looks like. And so they become so independent. And I always like to go into the classrooms at the beginning of the year and just follow each class as they progress through the year. And by Christmas break, you see so much learning take place, even looking at their writing, because in kindergarten, they're writing. And it's amazing to see how the learning evolves from the beginning of the year, mid-year, and then when we conclude our year. So let's talk about family engagement. Family engagement starts with developing trust. And one of the most important things is that we build trust with our families. And when we build trust with our families, they're more open to become a part of the school environment, because parent, school, and home relationships, it's a community partnership that we need every voice at the table to make sure that we're building the best students possible. And it's also important that we build positive learning environments that contribute to family engagement. Make sure that we're intentional about the activities that we're having in school to make sure that it's tailored to fit the needs of all families and learners, and making sure that we're purposeful and intentional in identifying our learning outcomes when we have parent engagement activities. And ultimately, when we have that partnerships, then we will make sure that our students are successful. So how can parents increase their communication and collaboration? One of the most important things is regular communication and making sure that we're maintaining consistent contact with teachers regarding your child's progress, active participation, such as attending school events, parent-teacher conferences, and workshops. Workshops are things such as like curriculum night. And I know one thing that we have at our school is a 4K toddler program where students that are going to be interested in our 4K program or maybe engaged in another program, but we allow the students and their parents to come in, and we have our 4K toddler tots program where we provide activities for parents, resources, answer questions, and it's just an opportunity for their children to come into the school environment and get a preview of what school looks like. Also, shared goals, collaborate with teachers to align your home and school learning objectives. So when your child is learning new concepts in the classroom, it's important that we have a continuation of that learning in the home. And teachers are always open to share resources and strategies that parents can use to support the learning at home. And then have an open dialogue. That's very important that we foster an open and honest communication channel between home and school. And in what ways can parents continue to reinforce learning at home? By promoting literacy, encouraging reading and writing activities at home. Consistent routines are important as well. Establishing routines help with the child entering into the school setting as well. Just maintaining consistency at home when we all have consistency in the classroom as well. That will help reinforce learning and just creating those structures for your child. Skill practice is just practicing skills learned at school in the everyday home situation, and then positively reinforce your child's efforts and achievements, and knowing that it's okay for children to make mistakes. That's how they learn and grow. And then social skills development that reinforce the social skills and positive interactions at home, and ultimately limit their screen time as well. So in closing, I think it's important as parents, teachers, community members, that we find joy in the journey. The work that we do, whether it's from the parent lens or the educator side, is to support children. And I love this quote. I have taken it with me to every school that I've worked in. And it just simply says that when little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it's our job to share our calm and not join their chaos. So I thank you for your time today, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
So we have about 7 minutes left together. And Tomeka, we do have a question that we want to share with you. Not surprisingly, all of these expectations are a little bit overwhelming, right? Both for, I think, a parent or an early educator to hear this. When you think about all of it, what is the most important thing? I mean, you sort of hinted at it at the end, but in general, is there anything else you would add? What is the most important thing to focus on when, as an adult, feeling sort of overwhelmed by this list of readiness considerations?
Okay, so I'll speak from the parent lens. I think it's important, and like I said, it's finding joy in a journey, because it's a journey and we have to take it one day at a time. And as a parent, bringing your child into kindergarten for the first day, there's an overwhelming amount of emotions that will take place, and it's okay, but know that you are leaving your child with adults who will make sure that they have all of the tools and resources that they need to be successful. And leading up to the first day of school, I think it's important to talk about your emotions as a parent with your child and come up with a plan how the two of you can support one another through the first couple of weeks of school.
That's great advice. And our South Carolina First Step School Transition Coordinator, Dr. Kilborn, is with us today. And I wanted to share with her this question. I know she spends a lot of time thinking about it. How do I, as a 4K teacher, help my students and families gain trust, that trust between family and teacher?
That's a great question. And we have a lot of 4K experts here that maybe want to chime in as well, maybe put something in the chat. But I think that in general, we often have a challenge in our 4K classes that our little children are going to so many different schools. And so if you're lucky enough that all of your children or a majority of your children are going to one elementary school, for example, that's a wonderful opportunity to build some bridges, to reach out and make some introductions in that case. I will say that I know kindergarten teachers appreciate a lot of information about individual children if they have that opportunity. So to put a plug in for our Ready for Kindergarten publication that will be out soon, we have a checklist at the end that is just a nice kind of summary of a form that parents or the 4K teachers might want to fill out, and then make sure that that gets in the hands of kindergarten teachers. So, as much as we can give the message that this is going to be great, mom, dad, you've got this, child, you've got this, we're ready to go. I think it's just this is a wonderful time for celebration.
Thank you so much. And yes, feel free, folks, to put additional ideas. And I want to thank both of our presenters again, both Cara and Tomeka. And add, as somebody, I've raised 4 kids, and I'm on the other side of it. And it is true that the days are long and the years are short. And just want to echo the sentiment of all the things of this list of readiness tasks. Know that we're cheering for you as parents, as educators, and encourage that love of learning. Have fun with it. Get outside, take walks together. Teaching counting can be as simple as going in the kitchen and starting out with 2 spoons and taking away 1. If I have 1 spoon, how many do I have left? And reading every day, not because it's a chore, but because it's fun. Make it part of your bedtime routine, even if it's only 2 or 3 minutes. But leaning in, listening, enjoying the journey, and remembering that children will remember more how you made them feel as opposed to what we did for them. So let's not get lost in the work and the task and the chores of early care and education, and take time to enjoy it so that our kiddos, they feel it. They feel the calm, they feel the joy, and that's where we keep our emphasis. So I think we are close to 1 o'clock. Let me just check our Q&A one more time. It's been great. Thank you so much for giving us an hour in the middle of the day on the Friday. We hope that you and your families and your students have a wonderful day. And we also hope that you will take a moment to fill out our survey so that we can learn from this and learn how to do it better moving forward. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great weekend.